What is up, everybody? This is Ryan here. I just had Clint Oram on. Clint is a co-founder over at SugarCRM. Really cool story. He walks through how he went from an idea to getting $2 million in funding in about 3 months. Next thing you know, years and years later, he's at $120 million in revenue, is working with mid-market and enterprise, or small enterprise, what I would call organizations. Really, really cool interview because he walks through the milestones that every business has when they're trying to make that jump from 0 to 120 million. So check it out. Really cool episode, and I'll share it with you in a bit. Welcome everybody to the Scale Up Show. This is your host, Ryan Staley, and I have a very, very special guest with me today. I have Clint Oram. Clint is the CMO and co-founder at SugarCRM. He basically helped found SugarCRM in 2004 with the goal of enabling companies around the world to turn their customers into loyal fans. He's one of the original architects and developers, co-authored multiple CRM software patents, and SugarCRM was actually recognized as a winner in the prestigious 2022 CRM watch list. Clint, welcome. Happy to have you on, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. You bet. Glad to be here today.
Yeah, it was fun cutting it up with you before. So I'm real excited to get into it with you. And I think it would be awesome to have everybody understand just where you're at and your point of the journey. So can you just walk us through what is your ARR right now?
Sure. SugarCRM started in 2004. We are currently at 120 million in ARR. Other statistics around it. What else do you want to know about the company?
Well, what's your go-to-market strategy, your primary go-to-market strategy?
Primary go-to-market strategy is focusing on B2B mid-market companies, focusing on helping them solve all of their front office challenges with a particular focus on sales. So if you're a company that's looking to invigorate sales, or you have a sales culture in your company, we can help you on marketing, we can help you on customer service, but the area that you're going to come to us for is really around that depth of expertise in sales automation and everything around that topic. And in there, our customers are typically ones that have built their own form of recurring revenue. So you asked me, what's my ARR, right? Annual recurring revenue. Almost every one of I'd say every one of my customers has some form of recurring revenue, whether they call it annual recurring revenue or not. For those that are in the know around the software industry, we call our salespeople who work with existing customers customer success managers. Mm-hmm. Manufacturing industry, they're called account managers, right? You kind of work your way across the board. But that's the type of customer that we help grow.
Okay, excellent. And would you say, since you're in that kind of mid-market, space and up, what are you using predominantly product-led growth, marketing, sales? What's your main revenue mechanism then in terms of acquiring new customers?
Well, if you were to think back to the MBA class, there's 4 levers that any company can pull when it comes to differentiation: quality, price, service, and convenience. I would say to a large degree, most every company gets started by pulling the quality lever or the price lever, right? Product, differentiating around product and innovation, or trying to undercut the competition with a lower price. That's where we got started, no doubt about it. But you'll also learn over time that differentiating on quality on your product is difficult in a flat world where frankly so many products have just become somewhat commoditized, ubiquitous. CRM software was kind of a special, different thing 20 years ago. There's lots of CRM solutions out there today. Differentiating on price, boy, I got a whole story about that one. But the short version of it, differentiating on price is a race to the bottom.
Right.
End of story. So where companies are differentiating today, and where we're differentiating, and where we're educating our customers how to differentiate, is around service and convenience. Make it easy and put a smile on your customer's face. And that's frankly kind of at the core of what customer relationship management industry is all about.
Yeah, it's probably why Amazon bought Zappos, right? With a combination of convenience and amazing service. So Okay,
Yeah.
and can you walk us through real high level your solution?
Sure. SugarCRM is originally started. Well, first off, the word CRM is in our name, right? So if you're again familiar with this industry and what we do CRM, right? And CRM has historically been very much known and focused on sales tools, helping sellers sell. We've since expanded into a larger selection of tools around marketing automation tools, helping marketers market, and then helping customer service reps deliver outstanding customer service. What we do is we help companies manage that entire buyer's journey every step of the way with an instrument every step of the way with data so that you can really tune in your customer experience around your buyer's journey
Okay.
with the end goal of creating hashtag raving fans.
Okay. Awesome. Love that. We'll definitely get deeper into that. And how large is your team?
The full team or my sales team?
Full team. Well, both. Let's
Oh,
just do both. Full
okay.
team.
Yeah, we're with employees and contractors, we're about 550 people, and our sales organization in its entirety is about 100 with about 50 or so quota carrying reps.
Okay. Excellent.
We look a lot like our customers, to be quite frank,
Well, that's
which
good.
also helps when it goes out and winning their business and making them successful. We get every ounce of their pain. We know exactly where they're at, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's key. That's key. That's why we start off every episode with where you're at in the revenue journey because
yeah.
there's different problems at every stage, right? So, and then are you bootstrapped or funded?
Well, that's a whole story in and of itself. Bootstrapped at the beginning, but raised venture capital very quickly. So over the lifetime of the company, we raised 120 million in venture capital, and then we sold the company to private equity in 2018, and now we're growing under the auspices of Excel KKR, which is the private equity company, a private equity firm that owns SugarCRM.
Okay, excellent. That is really unique. At what point did you take on funding? Like you said early on. So
Right
how
out of
much
the
revenue
gates.
were you at? What's that?
Right out of the gates. So here's how I describe it when you're building a business. Either you're building a lifestyle business or you're building a growth business. Now, everybody you talk to wants to say, oh, I'm building a growth business. Absolutely. But if you think about the world of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of lifestyle businesses, right? I'm opening up a shop. I'm self-employed, small business. It's about putting money in my pocket to fund my lifestyle. A lot of smaller owner-operated businesses are really kind of lifestyle businesses to a large degree. And a big challenge of those companies when they hit a certain level of success, let's call it $2-3 million in revenues, they start realizing this is more than a lifestyle business. And how do I manage the growth around this business? And then there's other companies that come right out of the gates focused on being a growth business. And they're going to go look for investment capital very early. And we did that. So yeah, that's the short version. I could walk you through every month of 2004 from concept in January to 15 employees and $250,000 in revenue and $8 million of venture funding in December. That was 2004 in a nutshell.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a ride. So you might have why don't you start there? Walk us through that. What was that? What was that?
What was that story?
Was it fun? Was it a shit show? Was it all the
Oh,
above?
it was all fun. It's all been fun all along. I mean, okay, that's a little.
It's a bold faced lie, right?
Yeah, it's a little face lie. Yeah, there's moments of just soul wrenching horror and what the hell am I doing? And I remember a story of Elon Musk giving a talk to a group of MBA students at Stanford, and somebody asking him, "What's it like to be an entrepreneur?" And Elon Musk saying, "It's like staring into the abyss and chewing glass." Yeah, it is. It really is. With a few moments of this is freaking awesome. So for us, 2004 was nothing but freaking awesome, right? So 3 of us were working at another CRM company called Epiphany. And I was a product manager. I ran the customer service product line. The guy who sat in the cube next to me, he's product manager. He ran the Salesforce automation product line. We go out to lunch on January 18th. This year is burned into my mind. We go out to lunch on January 18th, 2004. And he throws out the idea, have you ever thought of starting a company? Yeah, that's why I'm here in Silicon Valley. Absolutely, I'm here to start a company. What do you think about open source CRM? I've really ever thought about it before. Let's talk about it. And then on the way back from lunch, I remember standing like 2 feet behind him and looking at him thinking, I'm going to do this. Fast forward, he and I are shaping the idea over January and February. In March, we went and recruited another one of our colleagues, a guy named Jacob Taylor, who was in the engineering team. So he was the hot up and coming engineering manager, and we were the hot up and coming product managers. I was more techie focused, and John, the guy the guy with the original idea, he was more sales and marketing focused. So we all had some really good balancing traits.
Yeah, that's great.
We recruited Jacob in March. We quit our jobs April 1st. So what's today? March 24th. So this is 19 years ago. 19 years ago, I'm sitting there going, I'm going to quit my job. What am I doing? Right? Quit our jobs, started writing code, posted it for free download on a website called SourceForge, which was the epicenter of open source software in 2004. Started getting downloads right out of the gates. That's in April and May. And then June 4th, 2004, we are doing a pitch to a room full of VCs at a local incubator in Silicon Valley. In fact, if you go to our Wikipedia page for SugarCRM, you'll see a picture of the three of us at that incubator pitch event. And that was a $2 million day for us.
Was that, real quick, because I don't want to miss this, because this is a good point. Was that Y Combinator, or who was that? What was it?
It's a group called SD Forum.
Okay.
And you know what? COVID killed them.
Really?
It wrenched my heart. I got an email about 3 months ago from the executive director saying, we're going to have to shut down. And because they had built their whole business model around effectively in-person activities, in-person events, and COVID killed them. And that was hard, right? But we were in their offices. We rented an office. We were in the same office that Hotmail incubated in. How about that? Same desks, same office space as Hotmail.
Oh, really?
For those of us that remember Hotmail, right?
Yeah, I still actually have a Hotmail account. My junk
There
account.
you go. Well, in June 4th, 2004, we pitched this room full of VCs. A young VC, a young guy who was not even a partner yet, loved our story. He basically launched his career around us. He's now the CEO of Threshold Ventures. And he invested in Sugar, he invested in Box, he invested in just a whole bunch of other great success stories. He put $2 million in our pocket in June 2004. We started hiring people and finding an office in July. We moved into our office first week of August, had our first set of employees starting the first week of August, and then just took off. And then we started selling in October, because we had a free version of our product. That's how we went to market. Our whole go-to-market strategy in the early days was wrapped around freemium. And we started selling our premium add-ons in October, and in 3 months we sold $250,000 worth of software. And that was 2004. That was having the tiger by the tail.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great story. So how did that, and I know there's lots of amazing ups and downs that I'm sure you went through, but can you bring us current to today as well? Just like how you've gotten to this point, 18 years later, right? From 2004 to 22, and what the journey's been like.
Lots of ups and downs. How do you summarize 19 years? Lots of hard work. Million miles on United. Picked up my family and moved them to Dublin, Ireland in 2007 to open up our European operations. Lived there for just under 2 years. Then the 2008 crash happened, and I came back to the office. My partner, John, who was CEO, got let go soon thereafter, right? Mm-hmm. Business was kind of stalling out. Was it 2008 or was it strategy? And, at a certain point, the board doesn't care, and they just want to put a new person in. In comes Larry Augustin, who was a board member. He became CEO. And we grew the business from there up to the next 50 million. And at that point, open source was losing traction in the marketplace. And we made either the smartest move we ever made or the stupidest move we ever made. Just kind of depends where you want to stand in the equation. We continue to grow, so I'm going to argue is a great move.
Right. Yeah.
But did we grow fast enough? That's always the Monday morning quarterback question. So we stepped away from open source in 2014 and focused, kind of transitioned from being an open source company that happened to do CRM to being a CRM company that happened to do open source to being a CRM company. Ultimately, kind of the story in there is it reaches a point where technology innovation launches you and the early adopters love you for your technology innovation, but it reaches a point where you need to be focused on solving business problems and not talking about your tech all day long. And when you're an open source company, not only do you talk about your tech, but you talk about your source code. I could tell you about how awesome we wrote source code. And the IT's group's like, yeah, that's awesome. And the VP of sales saying, I really couldn't care less. Can you help me grow my company? And so we had to shift gears, and we shifted gears and became a CRM leader across the board, not an open source leader, but a CRM leader. And that basically takes us to today, and that's where we are today. Along the way, our customers start asking us to solve more of their front office business problems, not just the Salesforce automation, the CRM business problem, and we expand our product suite through M&A. That's what I do today. In fact, you introduced me as CMO. I used to be CMO, right? In fact, I'm a somewhat unique character out there in that I was CTO, then I became CMO, and now I'm Chief Strategy Officer. Oh. So the nerd becomes the marketer, becomes the strategist. Okay. And that's kind of part of my own personal story. I've always straddled those two lines. And now I lead M&A for the company, and we've bought 9 companies in the last 3 years.
Wow. Okay. Sorry about the botch on the intro. So I thought.
Oh, good. I was CMO at one point. Claire, who's our new CMO, and by the way, she's a lot better at being a CMO than I was. She's probably sitting there going, hey, wait, I thought that was my job.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, because this is I mean, obviously to get to 120 million, there's lots of critical jumps, but like from your perspective, what were the top 3 like most critical milestones that you hit on the way to 120 million from when you started?
Well, certainly there's that initial rush when our software is being downloaded into literally every country in the world, and we've got millions of users of our free product. But you know what? The revenue was not keeping pace with that adoption, right? And there's a whole story in there about the freemium model and you know that race to the bottom that I referred to earlier. Mm-hmm. If I look back on you know, was it success or was it a mistake? It all kind of depends where you're standing. And I wouldn't build a company around the freemium model ever again. I think not only is it just a difficult line to walk, how much do you put into the free product and how much do you charge for, right? Mm-hmm. We erred heavily on the side of putting a lot of stuff into the free, and frankly, that challenged our revenue growth. And you know, for those in the audience who might be saying, you know, it's not all about revenue growth. Well, it kind of is, because you need the fuel to grow, right? Revenue is how you hire people. It's how you pay your engineers, right? It's how you expand what you're doing for your customers. And we just didn't feel like the revenue growth was matching the investments that we were making into the free product. And so we shifted gears there. So big early launch was free downloads, mass attention, frictionless adoption, and then we started shifting into selling and really selling software. And here's a ironic statement: we sell software to help sellers sell, but we kind of sucked at selling ourselves. We were better writers of code than we were at selling software, and there's a lot of mechanics of how to build a growth, hyper growth sales machine. A lot of lessons learned in there. Basically, it comes down to one thing and one thing only: velocity. First one to show up wins, right? And you can start unpacking that statement along the way. And how do you build a sales organization that's designed to be the first one that shows up, and to be driven around the concept of velocity? And we weren't very good at that. We actually were almost, you could cast it on from one perspective as the cobbler's children have no shoes, or you just cast it from the perspective that we were swimming in leads and we didn't have to be good. And then we had to be good to maintain the growth rate at selling. And so we learned how to be a real sales organization and a sales culture, as opposed to just an engineering culture, if you will. And there's a lot of insights behind that statement. And now it's about growth by expanding what you do for your customers, because there reaches a point when your customers say, hey, you do that part really well, but I kind of want one partner, one vendor, one throat to choke. Can you do more? And then we had to shift gears again to be a company that knew how to grow through acquisitions. And that was a whole culture change in and of itself, right? And I think we've done it really well. And that's one of the things I love about private equity, is they know how to teach you how to do acquisitions. And a lot of companies fail when they do acquisitions, especially when they try to figure out how to grow through acquisitions on their own without really bringing in subject matter experts. And a big part of why I wanted to join with AKKR was it was very clear that they knew how to do that, and not in an asshole kind of way, but in a very productive, value-driven kind of way. So yeah, those are some 3 milestones in our history.
No, those are. I mean, that's. I mean, just to recap. So freemium and mass adoption, and then you're like, hey, people. That's great, but we need to then shift to a sales organization and then grow by expanding customers through acquisitions as well. So I think it's really interesting on the journey that you talked about to make that happen. So
and I like I said earlier, I work primarily with B2B companies, mid-market companies in the technology space, in the software space, in the manufacturing space, in the business services spaces. And if you take a big enough step back, they all have a very similar story, right? Differentiating on product, then you got to learn how to actually be professional, and you got to take your game up to a next notch. And then you're going to look at expanding your capabilities into areas that you haven't done before, and how do you do that well? And that's a set of growth milestones that I would argue every mid-market company has gone through themselves. Some have done it well, some have stumbled along the way. I would argue that we've done well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously where you're sitting right now looks like you are. So, so keep it up. So what would you say? Obviously, you have a lot of access, and I think you're what 1.5 million users plus, or 1.3 million, something like that, which is a massive data set. And I'm sure you hear a lot, especially looking at the sales function. So, what would you say is the single biggest challenge that you see organizations in that mid market, which I think we define as what 50 million to 150 million, 50 to 200 million range?
Yeah, well, let's talk about mid-market for a second. So there's a lot of different definitions. You ask 3 different analysts define the mid-market, and you get 10 different answers, right? And there's a couple kind of tried and true definitions. The companies with 50 million to 1 billion in revenue are mid-market companies. And you see that all over the place. And then there's another set that say, okay, it's about somewhere in the 250 employee to 2,500 employee range. Okay, that's another way of saying it. I'm going to say something different. Mid-market's a mindset. It's not a specific measure. It's a mindset in that you're no longer small, but you're not yet large. Right? And if you're a middle child like me, you had a real kind of deep emotional connection to that. There you go. Yeah, middle children, you're always trying to keep up with your older brother, and why does your little sister get everything handed to her? Right?
So true. So
it
true.
is. It is.
All right, so go ahead. Sorry, we could do a whole episode.
There you go. And there's kind of a bit of that mindset in mid-market that, on one hand, you're trying to knock back the little guys, and the other hand, you're trying to outcompete the big guys. And in there, kind of the key point is I'm growing. And percentage-wise, you can hit some really fantastic growth numbers when you're a mid-market company. It's tough to to peg those kind of numbers when you're a large enterprise billion-dollar plus company. Now the little guys, they can show like 300% growth year to year, and okay, well, so you went from 300,000 to 900,000. Good for you, right? Try and go from 30 million to 90 million in 1 year, right? And there's mid-market companies that are doing that. And so the thing I like about mid-market companies is they have professional leadership teams, they have capital to invest, they set audacious growth goals, and they put the pedal to the metal. And that's, those are fun companies to work with because they know what they're doing and they're ready to go do it. And I find companies as small as $5-10 million in revenue that are instrumented with that mindset and that leadership team and that growth capital. So I might bump down the mid-market definition into the 5 to 10 million revenue range if you've got the right mindset in the company. And again, I think it's ultimately about a mindset. So that's you asked a different question. I answered this question, and I've completely forgotten the question you originally answered. So
Well, I loved your answer, even though it was totally unrelated. I mean, it was related. Don't get me wrong, but not totally
Rule
unrelated.
number one on PR: answer the question you want to answer, not the one that was asked.
Exactly. So my question was, as a quick recap. No, I was asking, what do you think the single biggest problem is for the mid market in terms of growing their company, in terms of growing revenue? What would you say that is?
Here's what I see over and over again, and I'll come back to the mindset: is shifting gears from the playbook that grew you to where you are to the playbook that you need to get you to where you want to be. Shedding off history and tradition, and that's the way we always did it. And I'll talk a little bit more. There's some other details in there, but it really comes back to more than anything else is getting yourself into a growth mindset that's by design and not by accident. Because I would argue a lot of small companies almost succeed in spite of themselves. It's almost by accident. Like, oh, hey, that worked. I'll go do more of that, right? And when you're growing a mid-market company, you've got a leadership team who's setting out strategies, and you've got a bunch of opinions, and you've got people who are wed to the past, and then there's new people you've hired who want to go create a new future. And there's a lot of back and forth of, what's the new playbook? And having been through this journey myself, setting aside the playbook of the past, the open source playbook, and selecting a new playbook, CRM experts, not open source experts, with a professionally run sales and marketing organization designed for growth. You've got to shift gears. And that's hard. And where does that kind of leadership come from? The top.
Right.
Got to have the right CEO.
Definitely.
Got to have the right CEO who's ready to do that, who's ready to embark on taking risks and being bold, right? Be bold or go home. What is it? The fortune favors the bold. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I think it really starts. Now, along the way, there are some key points in there. In terms, you remember, in the end, people buy a product or service, so your stuff has to be good, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it has frankly, in today's market, you got to be great, right? And that's meets min. But your differentiation solely around product, that's not going to be the cornerstone of it. It'll be a very important part, but I would argue it's not the cornerstone of a continuous growth strategy as a mid-market company. You got to bring in customer experience and customer service. So let me say it another way. Product experience, brand experience, customer experience, employee experience. Every company that goes through their SMB growth curves, they have to do extremely well on product experience. The ones that achieve hypergrowth understand that they got to get a hold of that brand experience out of the gates as well. So the difference between a good company and a great company in the SMB stage, I would argue, is Good companies understand product experience. Great companies understand product and brand. And that's the engine that fuels you out of the gates. And you never leave it, right? But there reaches a point where you have to start layering on customer experience and employee experience. You got to make those customers happy. You got to turn them into your marketing machine, right? You got to lean on quality of service as not just quality of product as a differentiation strategy. A lot of companies have a hard time with that when the playbook was all product, right? And then even more importantly, you reach a certain point where you got a big team, right? It's no longer three guys and a dog in a garage, or for us it was three guys, a cat, and an attic. But you're no longer just a small group of people that it's easy to keep aligned and focused in the right direction. You're hundreds and hundreds of people. We have, in the United States alone, we have offices, not just remote workers, but we have offices in Silicon Valley, Denver, Raleigh, Atlanta, Orlando, and Raleigh. Did I say Raleigh? I think I might have said Raleigh twice.
Raleigh twice, but that's okay.
Raleigh's important. And then we have offices in Mexico, UK, Germany. We've got dev teams in Belarus and Romania. How's that one for a twist right now? We have developers who work for our Belarusian team out of Ukraine. How about that one? Managing the employee experience at scale. A lot of small companies just completely trip over that. So I'm going to come back and argue that the topics you're looking to optimize when you're a mid-market company, it doesn't switch one for the other. It was product and brand, then it becomes product, brand, customers, and employees, and you got to manage all of them, and it's more complicated, takes more effort, and that's what I would say mid-market companies struggle with is making sure that their playbook for the next stage of growth is one that's laid out by design and not by accident. Because I rarely find mid-market companies that succeed by accident. I find a lot of small companies that succeed by accident, but rarely, if ever, find mid-sized companies that succeed by accident. And it really has to be by design.
A lot of great points within there. So we're getting close on time, though. So I want to hit on one or two last things, and then we could wrap. But so what would you say, as an organization is like for SugarCRM, what's the number one best skill or practice that you've implemented that's led to the most growth in terms of sales or marketing?
The number one best practice that's led to growth. Well, I alluded to it earlier. When you're a small company that has rapid early success, you're kind of swimming in leads, right? Mm-hmm. And you can cherry pick, and you can choose what you go after, and you can kind of, you might be a little slower to reply, but when you've got a lot of things to choose from, you can cherry pick and get there. When you're trying to maintain that continuous growth, right, and you got to get more efficient and effective, and the competition is now looking at you and saying, these guys are nipping at our heels. It gets tougher, and you got to be thinking about velocity. So I'm going to take a step back and put it in the context of this kind of marketing concept: velocity, value, volume, and conversions. It's often referred to as the 4 V's, where the V in conversion makes it convenient to say 4 V's. Otherwise, it's 3 V's and a C, and it just doesn't have the same rhythm.
Velocity, value, volume, and what did you
change
conversions into? Conversions.
So let's walk our way through it. Okay. Do you have the right size deals? Right? Do you have the right size deals? What if you've instrumented your company around an average deal size of $50,000, and you're bringing in deals that are $5,000? Wrong value, right?
Exactly.
Wrong size of deals. Do you have enough of them? What if you've instrumented the company around $50,000 deals where you're expecting to close 20 of them, 20 new ones a month, and 50 existing ones a month? Do you have the right volume behind that, the right pipeline behind it? So that's value and volume. Then comes velocity. All right, velocity, value, and volume are very much tied together. Velocity and conversions are very much tied together. Velocity is, do you have the right speed through your pipeline? Okay, in the world of B2B software sales, the typical sales cycle is 90 days on average. Small deals can typically close in 30 days, and large deals can close in 180 days. And your typical blended velocity is going to form from SQL to deal closed is going to be it's going to be 90 days, and you need to start measuring that. And you need and what if you've got bottlenecks in that velocity? Now I can say it simply: first guy to show up typically wins, right? But it's more than that. There's actually math behind it, and there's instrumentation behind it, and there's measuring it, and then there's identifying bottlenecks. And when your velocity slows down, it kills your company. It really does. Now in there, to measure that you have the right velocity, it's also, do I have the right conversions, right? Am I converting the right number of website visits to form captures, to MQLs, to SQLs, to close lost? You're going to instrument every step of the way, and you're going to start building your business models by certain conversion factors. What's your win rate, right? That's the simple one. What's your win rate?
Right.
Are you winning 20? Are you winning 10% of your deals, or are you winning 30% of your deals? Now, generally speaking, in sales, you can expect to win a 30-year deals, lose a 30-year deals, and have a 30-year deals go to no decision. That's a typical new logo model. Now you're going to try and optimize that, all right? You're going to want to reduce the losses and the no decisions, but that win rate is a conversion rate. And so when you're building your business by design and not by accident, you're measuring value, volume, velocity, and conversions, and you're optimizing around that, and you're identifying bottlenecks, and you're fixing the bottlenecks. And of all of those topics, the one that I think is the single most important is velocity. That's the one where I see the high flyers, they're able to close deals faster. And by the way, that's a trailing metric. That's not a leading metric, which is a whole other topic in there. But by the way, this is what we do, right? Everything I just described, this is what we do. We help companies figure out how to do that.
Yeah. No, and velocity, to back you up on that, I would tell you that's the number one single most overlooked metrics that companies ignore. They always look at the conversions. They usually look at the quantity and then the deal size, but then they walk right by the velocity. And then it's even rare for them to look at velocity by stage, right? Because
CEOs get hyper fixated on win rates, right? And the story is more than win rates. And I agree with your comment on velocity. That's exactly right. So
yeah. So, well, we are up on time. It was awesome spending time with you, Clint. Can you let everyone know where they find you, where they could find you, where they could find out more about SugarCRM, and then we'll wrap it up.
To find me, do a Google search on SugarClint. So my Twitter handle is SugarClint. You'll find me on LinkedIn with SugarClint. I started that as a whim 19 years ago, and it's stuck. You can find us at www.sugarcrm.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, Clint. It was awesome. I love your energy. I love where you're going.
My pleasure, Ryan.
And appreciate you having you on.
Okay. You have a great day.
All right. We'll see you on the next episode.